Every town has a place people avoid, not because of warning signs, not because it's dangerous, but because everyone quietly agrees that some places should be left alone. Just outside the edge of Ashbrook, hidden behind rows of dying pine trees and an abandoned athletic field, stands Blackwood Elementary School. The building has been empty for 23 years. At least, that's what the official records say. Locals rarely speak about the school. When they do, the conversation never lasts long. Older residents change the subject. Parents tell their children never to wander near the property. Teenagers dare each other to enter through the broken front gate, but very few actually do. Those who have entered usually leave within minutes. Some claim they heard children laughing. Others insist they heard the sound of a classroom full of students, even though every room was empty. And nearly everyone tells the same story. Every night at exactly 12:13 a.m., the old school bell rings. There is only one problem. The building has had no electricity for more than 2 decades. My name is Daniel Carter. For the past 6 years, I've documented abandoned locations across the country. Most stories turn out to have ordinary explanations. Loose metal, shifting foundations, wildlife, or people's imaginations often create experiences that seem supernatural. That is why I came to Blackwood, not to prove ghosts exist, but to understand why this forgotten school still terrifies an entire town. It was nearly sunset when I parked my truck beside the cracked road leading toward the property. The school looked even larger than the photographs online. Nature had almost reclaimed it. Thick vines climbed across faded brick walls. Every classroom window was shattered. The playground swings moved gently in the wind, producing a slow metallic squeak that echoed through the empty field. No birds sang. No insects buzzed. The silence felt unnatural. I checked my equipment one final time. 2 cameras, a flashlight, fresh batteries, audio recorder, EMF detector, thermal camera, everything functioning perfectly. As I approached the front entrance, my boots crunched across broken glass scattered beneath the doorway. Someone had spray painted a warning across the faded concrete wall. Don't stay after the bell. The letters looked fresh, far newer than the building itself. I scanned the entrance with my flashlight. No recent footprints. No signs anyone had been living inside. Just dust. Layers and layers of dust. The front doors had collapsed years ago, leaving the lobby completely exposed. Inside, the air smelled different. Old paper, rotting wood, mold. Something metallic lingered beneath it all. The smell reminded me of an abandoned hospital I had explored years before. Only stronger, much stronger. The reception desk still stood where it had always been. Attendance records lay scattered across the floor. Children's artwork remained pinned to bulletin boards. Someone had simply walked away. The strange part wasn't the decay. It was how complete everything felt. Class schedules still hung beside classroom numbers. A half-finished science project remained inside a glass display case. A trophy cabinet still displayed awards from nearly 30 years ago. Nothing suggested the building had been emptied properly. It felt frozen, as though time itself had stopped. I began recording. Blackwood Elementary, closed in October of 2003. No official explanation beyond structural concerns. Residents believe something happened here during the school's final week. My voice sounded unnaturally loud inside the empty lobby. Then, a sound interrupted the recording. Tap. I stopped speaking. Another tap echoed from somewhere upstairs. Tap, tap, tap. Slow, measured, like someone walking carefully across old wooden flooring. I looked toward the ceiling. Nothing. The footsteps stopped. Complete silence returned. I waited nearly 30 seconds. Nothing else happened. Probably settling wood, I told myself. Old buildings make noise. That's normal. I continued forward. The main hallway stretched nearly 100 feet ahead. Rows of classroom doors lined both sides. Every door stood open. The flashlight beam disappeared into darkness beyond each entrance. Room 104. Empty desks. Dust-covered chalkboard. Room 105. Books scattered across the floor. Room 106. Children's backpacks hanging neatly from wall hooks. I paused. Backpacks. Why would they still be here? Schools don't abandon student belongings. Someone would have collected them. Unless everything had happened too quickly. I stepped inside room 106. Tiny chairs remained arranged in neat rows. Alphabet posters still decorated the walls. On the teacher's desk rested a single red apple. Completely black, completely dried, yet somehow still intact. I aimed the camera across the room. That's when I noticed something strange. Every desk faced forward, except one. The desk in the very back corner had been turned completely around, facing the wall. I walked toward it, slowly. Each footstep echoed across the classroom. The closer I got, the colder the room became. I checked the thermometer attached to my camera rig. Outside temperature, 58 degrees. Inside hallway, 55 degrees. Back corner of room 106, 41 degrees. I frowned. That wasn't possible. Not without a broken ventilation system. Except, there was no functioning ventilation anymore. I reached the final desk. Something had been carved into the wooden surface. Not initials, not random scratches. A sentence, written deep enough to survive decades. She never left. The carving looked old, very old. I photographed it. The moment the camera shutter clicked, a loud bang exploded somewhere above me. Not a creak, not settling wood. A violent impact, like an entire classroom door had been slammed shut. Every instinct told me someone else was inside the building. I rushed back into the hallway. Every classroom door remained open. Nothing had changed. Then, far down the corridor, near the staircase leading to the second floor, I saw movement. Just for a second, a small figure, no taller than a child, standing perfectly still beneath the fading evening light. Before I could call out, the figure stepped backward into the darkness and disappeared. For several seconds, I couldn't move. The small figure had vanished so quickly that my mind immediately searched for a logical explanation. A trick of the light, a broken shadow, maybe a piece of hanging fabric moving in the wind. I replayed the footage on my camera, frame by frame. There it was, a silhouette, no details, no face, just the unmistakable outline of someone standing beneath the staircase. Then, within a single frame, gone. I walked toward the staircase, sweeping my flashlight across every corner. Nothing. The hallway was empty. Dust covered every inch of the floor except for the trail of footprints I had made since entering the building. No child's footprints. No fresh shoe prints. Nothing. Only mine. I crouched beside the staircase. The concrete steps disappeared into darkness above. Every landing was covered in cracked paint and fallen ceiling tiles. A faded banner still hung from the railing. Welcome back, students. The letters had almost disappeared beneath years of moisture and mold. As I adjusted my backpack, another sound drifted through the building. A child's laughter. Soft. Distant. It lasted no more than 2 seconds. Then silence. I froze. My audio recorder was still running. If I had heard it, the microphone should have captured it too. I whispered toward the camera. That definitely wasn't the wind. The EMF detector clipped to my vest suddenly emitted a sharp beep. Then another. The screen flickered. Normal. Spike. Normal. Spike again. The readings made no sense. There were no active power lines anywhere near the school. I slowly climbed the staircase. Each step groaned beneath my weight. The second floor was colder than the first. A thin layer of fog drifted through the hallway, illuminated by my flashlight. Moisture shouldn't have collected inside the building. Yet the air looked almost alive. Halfway down the corridor, I found classroom 212. Unlike every room downstairs, its door was closed. Fresh scratches covered the wood around the handle, long vertical, as though someone had repeatedly dragged their fingernails across it. I reached for the knob. Locked. I pushed harder. Nothing. Then, A loud knock answered from inside. 3 slow impacts. Knock. 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 My hand instinctively pulled away. Every hair on my arm stood up. I called out, "Hello?" No response. I tried again. If someone is inside, I'm documenting the building. I don't mean any harm. Silence. After several seconds, I leaned closer. The room was completely quiet. Then I noticed something beneath the door. A sheet of paper. It hadn't been there moments ago. Slowly, very slowly, the paper slid across the dusty floor from inside the classroom until it stopped against my boot. No footsteps. No sound. Just the paper. I picked it up. It was an old attendance sheet. Every student's name had been crossed out using a thick black marker. Every name, except one, Emily Harper. Her name remained untouched. Someone had circled it several times. Across the bottom of the page, another sentence had been written by hand. "She's still waiting." My flashlight flickered. Once. Twice. Then everything went dark. Complete darkness surrounded me. The silence became overwhelming. I could hear my own breathing echoing through the hallway. I reached into my pocket for a spare flashlight. Before I could switch it on, footsteps. Running. Not one person. Several. Children. They raced across the corridor around me. Left. Right. Behind me. In front of me. The sound bounced off the walls as though an invisible classroom had suddenly emptied into the hallway. I turned toward every direction. Nothing could be seen. Only darkness. The footsteps stopped all at once. Click. My backup flashlight came to life. The hallway was empty, but something had changed. Every classroom door along the corridor was now closed. I was certain every one of them had been open only moments earlier. The silence felt heavier than before. Then, from somewhere deep inside the second floor, a school bell rang. One clear metallic tone. Its echo rolled through every hallway. Then another, and another. I instinctively checked my watch. 12:13 a.m. The exact time the townspeople had warned me about. The bell continued ringing. Not electronically. Mechanically. Heavy. Ancient. As if someone high above the building was pulling an old rope by hand. I aimed my flashlight toward the ceiling. Dust drifted downward with each ring. Then, every classroom door opened simultaneously. Not violently. Slowly. Perfectly synchronized. The creaking echoed through the hallway like one impossibly long breath. Beyond each doorway, darkness. Except one. At the far end of the corridor, inside the final classroom, a warm yellow light glowed softly. Someone, or something, was waiting inside. For several long seconds, I simply stared at the only classroom illuminated on the entire second floor. Every other room remained swallowed by darkness. Only that doorway glowed with a faint golden light. The school bell had finally stopped. Silence settled over the building once again. The kind of silence that felt as though the school itself was waiting for my next move. I checked my watch. 12:17 a.m. 4 minutes had passed since the bell began ringing. My camera was still recording. Battery, 82%. Audio recorder, active. Everything appeared normal. At least, until I reviewed the live monitor. The hallway behind me wasn't empty. On the camera screen, someone stood only a few feet away. A little girl. She wore an old-fashioned school uniform, faded almost gray with age. Long black hair rested neatly over her shoulders. Her hands hung motionless at her sides. She wasn't looking at the camera. She was looking directly at me. My heart pounded. I spun around immediately. Nothing. The hallway was empty. I slowly turned back toward the camera monitor. The girl was gone. A chill crawled across my neck. Whatever had appeared, the camera had seen it. I hadn't. Taking a deep breath, I forced myself toward the glowing classroom. Each step echoed through the corridor. The light grew brighter as I approached. Inside, everything looked impossible. The classroom appeared untouched by time. Every desk stood perfectly aligned. Books rested neatly on each surface. Fresh chalk covered the blackboard. The American flag hung cleanly in the corner. The room looked exactly as it might have on the final day classes were held. Not a single layer of dust. Not one broken window. No decay. Nothing. Only silence. At the front of the classroom stood the teacher's desk. On top rested a leather attendance book. I opened it carefully. October 14th, 2003. Every student's name had been marked present. Except one. Emily Harper. Beside her name, written in red ink. Absent. The handwriting beneath it looked hurried. Search continues. I frowned. That made no sense. According to every document I had found downstairs, Emily's name had never been crossed out, only circled. Suddenly, a child's voice whispered from somewhere behind me. "I'm here," barely audible, almost gentle. I turned. Every chair was empty. Why didn't they wait for me? The voice sounded closer now. Not threatening, not angry, just heartbroken. The temperature dropped instantly. My breath became visible. Then came another sound, the scrape of a chair. Slowly, one of the desks near the back of the room slid across the wooden floor by itself. It stopped facing the teacher. Another desk moved, then another. Within seconds, every chair in the classroom shifted into perfect rows, as though invisible students had quietly taken their seats. The silence returned. A soft breeze drifted through the room. The pages of the attendance book turned on their own, page after page, year after year, until they stopped at the final entry. A newspaper clipping had been tucked inside. Its headline read, "School closed following gas explosion during overnight maintenance." The article explained that a ruptured underground gas line had exploded beneath the east wing shortly after midnight. The fire spread rapidly through the building. Emergency crews evacuated the area before sunrise. Official reports stated there were no student casualties because the accident happened outside school hours. Yet someone had written a single sentence across the article with a black marker. They lied. Before I could examine it further, every light inside the classroom went out. Darkness swallowed the room. Then, children began singing. Softly. A melody, one every child learns in elementary school. The voices surrounded me. Front, back, left, right, as if dozens of unseen students were standing inches away. My flashlight flickered back to life. Every desk was empty again. The classroom had returned to ruin. Dust covered everything. Broken glass littered the floor. The clean walls were gone. The ceiling hung open where rainwater had rotted the beams. Only one thing remained unchanged. The attendance book, still lying open, still displaying Emily Harper's name. A loud crack echoed through the hallway. The floor beneath me shifted violently. A section of the ceiling collapsed near the doorway, filling the room with dust. Instinct took over. I grabbed my equipment and ran. The hallway behind me seemed far longer than before. Doors slammed shut one after another as I sprinted past them. Bang, 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 bang. Each impact echoed like a countdown. Halfway to the staircase, the laughter returned. Dozens of children, running behind me. I never looked back. The stairs shook beneath every step. The front lobby finally came into view. Moonlight poured through the broken entrance. Freedom. I burst outside into the cold night air and didn't stop until I reached my truck. Breathing heavily, I locked every door before checking the footage. Everything from the investigation remained intact, except the final 12 minutes. Every camera displayed only black static. No classroom, no voices, no singing, nothing. Only one frame survived, a single frozen image. Standing inside classroom 212, just before the recording failed, was the little girl. She smiled faintly, holding the attendance book against her chest. When I enlarged the photograph, I noticed something written across the cover in faded gold letters. Blackwood Elementary. Class of 2003. I searched public records the following week. There had never been a student named Emily Harper enrolled at Blackwood Elementary. Not in 2003. Not in any year. The attendance sheet, the newspaper article, the voice. None of it should have existed. Months later, I received an anonymous envelope with no return address. Inside was an old class photograph. 31 smiling children stood in front of Blackwood Elementary. On the back, someone had written only 6 words. You forgot to count the teacher. I counted the students. 31. Then I counted the adults. There should have been 1. Instead, there were 2. The second teacher stood in the back row. Her face had been scratched away, and beside her, holding her hand, was the same little girl I had seen inside classroom 212. Her name was never written anywhere. Some mysteries are solved by finding answers. Others survive because every answer only creates another question. Perhaps that's why Blackwood Elementary still stands abandoned. Not because people are afraid to enter, but because something inside is still taking attendance, waiting for one final name to be called.